Very well. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Morning.
I still don't hear everyone. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
For those who are coming here for the first time, welcome back. New year, new plans, new excitement. So nothing more correct than the first lectures that we're going to have in January are about our own plans. Not just for the year, but for the rest of our existence. That's what we study here every week. Our self-improvement, our path to glory, and our path to self-improvement. So we look forward to Mr. Marcos Diclei's lecture, What's Your Plan? We'll start easy with 2017 and let you extrapolate then for everything else. Welcome again today. Because today's our Lunch and Learn. It's a little bit off cycle, but because we do our planning activities the first week or so of the month, we've pushed the Lunch and Learn to today. So for those who are able to join us, we'll be very happy to have you here. As we always say, these lunches are an opportunity for us to know each other a little bit better than just the few minutes we spend here every week on the lectures, but also to help support the TSS. So let's get started. I'd like to invite our brother Marco Magalhães to have a short reading and our initial prayer. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone, this is a reading from the book Happy Life from Divaldo Pereira Franco by Joana de Angelis. In all circumstances, be yourself. Do not try to appear better than you are or underestimate yourself. Do not appear to be what you're not. As you yearn for a better position, work hard to achieve it. When you discover imperfections, strive to improve yourself. Both the person who exhibits abilities that he does not possess and the person who hides those that he does possess are lying. Being genuine is the way to acquire dignity. Going up is slow for everyone. The person who's winning the battle now began earlier. The person who's struggling now will win his battle later. Do not be embarrassed by the fact that you're a spirit on probation. In their time, your friends of today walk the road that you're now on. So, dear brothers and sisters, let's take this moment that we're here, rejoicing, celebrating life, celebrating the love and the message of love that Jesus sent to us. Let us all now, at this moment, unite our thoughts in the greater goodness of God that created all of us. Let us project these thoughts and these vibrations of peace around us. And may we all, in that way, help so many others out there. We ask our higher spirits to bless this moment, the speaker of today, and all the ones that are here now, incarnated and discarnated. And may we all today go a little step on our road of evolution, spiritual evolution, learning how to plan the next step in order to achieve our goals. Thank you, Jesus, for this opportunity and for the blessings. And let us all get started with these vibrations of love, peace, and charity. May God bless us, and so be it.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to all of you here and to all of you watching us through the internet. We have our digital medium, Livia, over there. So if you have comments or questions, please do share with us. I feel that the message that Marco just read couldn't be more appropriate, because it was short, but it touched in so many points that we are going to cover today. And to begin with, it gave us a great advice that we don't want to appear who we are really not, right? And I'm not here as an expert in planning. I'm here as one of us who struggle with our daily lives, with our plannings, who gave up so many times on plannings. And I feel that this is one of the reasons why we decided to address this topic. We just had our planning day the week before. Many of us have our New Year's resolutions or New Year plans, and by the time we are almost reaching February, many of those are just dropping down on the floor, like the Tetris, that little game on the computer, everything coming down because we cannot keep up with all the plans that we make. That's the reality, right? So we want to address some of this, because our lives, we can't let our lives go without direction, without control, right? We need to have some goals in mind, some targets in mind. So we are going to share today, some tips. We are going to share some lessons learned, and more than that, some advice from André Luiz, Chico Xavier, Emmanuel on planning. And Joe mentioned something very important. Usually we struggle when we go to a job interview and people say, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? I say, I cannot even see myself in 3 months from now. Imagine 5 years from now. But that's the reality. We should have that in mind. 5 years from now, 3 years from now, but it's very difficult. So we have to reduce that into smaller chunks that is easier for us to manage, to foresee, to set shorter and smaller goals, even to boost our motivation and our encouragement. So we'll start with 2017, which is challenging enough, right? Which is challenging enough for all of us. Now, many of us don't like really do planning, right? Because of the simple fact that life happens. I used to work as a project manager for many years. And as project managers, we are control freaks. And we think that this is my plan, and the world better comply with this plan and follow the plan. As soon as we save that plan, things already started to go out of control, right? And then we learn that real life planning, it's different. It doesn't work that way. And we need to have some flexibility. We need to be able to adapt. And some people, like me, who were perfectionists, that want things to follow to the rule, we suffer tremendously because it will never happen. So whatever plan we are building, we need to have some flexibility. That's why many people don't plan by day, but they plan the week or the month. So if things throw you out of balance, you can adapt, adjust, and still advance, right? But we all suffer. And as I said before, we cannot live our lives. There's a song in Brazil, pardon me for bringing this up, but I can't help, from Zeca Pagodinho. He says, deixa a vida me levar, né? Let life take me whatever it is. That's his song. Easy going, let the life take me wherever it goes. It's a quite dangerous thought. Imagine a ship in the ocean, right? And the captain just let it go. It's not even the automatic pilot. Just, you know what? I'm going to have a coffee and leave it there. We have no idea where we're going to end. And life is so short. Do we really want to live a life like that? Right? Let the winds take us whatever it is. It's a dangerous thought. No wonder when our dear Chico Xavier started to work with Emmanuel, his spiritual guide, on all his work during his last incarnation, Emmanuel asked him for 3 things to start working. Chico, there are 3 things, you gotta do it. Okay, I'm ready. What's the first? Discipline. Okay, I got it. What's the second? Discipline. Okay, again. Okay, so what's the third? Discipline. Right? So for those of us who think that, yeah, I don't like planning, I'd rather not do it, better consider that. Because we have to remember, before we reincarnated, what did happen up there? Let's put this up there, right? In the spiritual realm. Our reincarnatory planning. We're planning the nature of the challenge that we would face. We planned our bodies maybe. We planned where we would be born, the family we would be born. So there's a lot of planning. There's a lot of people on the other side cheering up for us, looking at our plan, looking at where we are, and they may be happy, they may be worried, right? But they are there with us. So planning happens no matter what, like it or not, and it's quite important. Quite important. Now, when we talk about planning, and even if we talk about planning this month, it can be quite overwhelming, right? We feel frustrated for the amount of trouble that we all have in life, but if we say, I'm going to, clean up, declutter my life, I'm going to, set myself to succeed and have a happier life. When we set ourselves to do that, we encounter something that looks like a puzzle, because we cannot put ourselves together without addressing multiple things. We don't live alone in an island, right? So if we talk about my 2017 plan, what are the things that will come to mind? Usually the first thing that comes to mind is our career. We got to pay our bills, we got to eat, we have to have a place to sleep, right? So we have our careers, we have our aspirations. We want to do something meaningful, we want to grow in our career. We want a salary increase to give more comfort to family. We have several things around career. That's one thing very critical for us, right? It consumes a lot of our time. And then you can bring up our health. There's no career if we don't have health, right? If I'm in the hospital, if we are sick at home, there's no career, there's no job. Oh, let's stop right there. Let's forget about the other pieces, because these 2 only is already challenging enough, right? Think about eating properly, sleeping properly, exercising, and then the job. It's already enough. But life is not only about that. We have our families, our relationships, people that we care, relationships that we need to nurture, right? We don't spend enough time with certain people and we want to do it. And we start making commitments for that. And not only the family, we have our finances, right? We want to have some fun, we want to do some stuff. But we always have a limited amount of money. And that's where we struggle as a family, right? And I feel that some of the planning, especially on the finances, we avoid like crazy. We don't want to hear about it, right? If you say, we're going to have a budget discussion this Friday, everybody whoosh, out of the room. You were all of a sudden alone because people don't want to talk about it, right? It is tough. We want to live a life sometimes beyond our means. And sometimes we need to adjust, and it's tough, right? And in a family where finances are not well, things don't go well at home. Everything is a source of conflicts. She wants to do something, he wants to do something, and you can't, and the kids want something, and you can't, and the bills to pay, and the stress build up. So it's really a puzzle, because those pieces need to come together. It's not an easy thing. And then we have our friends that we lost contact. We want to keep them close. We have the community that we want to volunteer. And so many other things. We want to have some fun as well. We want to travel. It's already overwhelming, right? So sometimes we may need to reconsider, scale back. Maybe I need to scale back on a few things and see where we go. But the reality is, our life is quite complex. There are so many things. And even if things are all perfect, haven't you all seen people that are famous and rich and beautiful and healthy, full of friends? They're unhappy. They are depressed. Even with suicidal tendencies. Why is that? Because we have everything for the short term, but we lack meaning. What is the purpose of our life? Why we are here? What's the objective of all this? We feel a void inside. It's empty. And that's the part that we always neglect. Yeah, and we say, oh yes, there is this thing called spirituality, right? They help us to understand our purpose, or why we struggle in so many of these areas while others seems to prosper in every single one of them. Why me? Why them? We don't understand if we don't talk about things that transcend the immediatist mindset, right? So it is very important for us, whatever planning we are doing for our lives, that we think about the whole purpose of our lives. We think about God, we think about the religion, which is really our connection with God, or connection with our existence, whatever religion it is, as long as it conducts us to be better persons, right? And this is a very critical piece that we often leave outside. We forget, we neglect, and we only think about it as the other pieces starts to fall apart, and all of a sudden it's a total chaos. And then we remember about God, we remember about prayer, right? And those things. So Chico Xavier and André Luiz in the book, the Spiritist Conduct, he says, very important for us, right? And that's the key. We need to place in different positions our responsibilities and all this. And he acknowledges our job, our family, the community where we live, and even the doctrine that we follow. We have to have different places for them. And we need to strive to keep them in balance. Balance is the key word for us. And then we think about work-life balance, right? We expect that my work life is a line like this, is always navigating that, and I want to have a personal life that is exactly like that, and that's the work-life balance. That's never going to happen, right? We all have these spikes that sometimes the work goes crazy, that requires most of our time, and the quality of life really go down. But we need to bring that back at some point, right? We need to take a break. So there are spikes in life. It's not a perfect plan, but we need that balance. We are responsible to bring that back, right? He says that to have a peaceful conscience, or to have a health of our conscience, we need to fulfill our duties with that balance, right? So this is why focusing on spirituality is so important. We have the purpose, we have the motivation for it. We'll talk more about it. Now, the other thing that helps with spirituality, it helps us to look at things from a different perspective. Sometimes when we have the earthly view of our problems and our struggles, things seem out of proportion, right? If we remember our times in high school, right? If our friends don't let us to be part of that little group, it's the end of the world. I'm not accepted, I'm ugly, I blame my parents because I am like this and they don't accept me. It's the end of the world, because for the teenagers at that high school level, that's their life, right? Nowadays we look back and say, that was nothing, that was silly, but at that time it was the world. So is our lives, right? Some of the struggles that we feel, if we put in perspective that we are immortal beings who will live eternally, and we'll have so many other opportunities, that we fail so much, and today we are at the best conditions that we have ever been. When we look at our problems, they seem smaller, because we will have another chance, because we will do it again, because in the next reincarnation we are likely not going to remember. In a few years no one is going to remember. But we make it bigger than it is if we feel that this is my only existence, right? Or if I place my whole life centered into one thing. Some of us live a life with the career as the center. And what happens when we get fired? The world ends. So many people committing suicide. because they lost their jobs. There are some cultures around the world which is even more critical. Sometimes we place the center of our existence in a loved one. And guess what? Reality is that we all will pass away. And then we can't cope with life anymore because that relative passed away. Right? So when we center our life in our principles, in the purpose while we are here, no matter which of those pillars drop, we still have the strength to stand still and move on. That's a very important point for us to consider when we are planning, right? And it's very tough to talk about that, but that's the reality. Our finances, we have our standard of living. I lose my job, I need to sell that car, I need to sell that house, I cannot visit that club anymore. I need to lower down. For some people, they can cope with that, right? Because that is their lives. So it's a reflection for us, right? Where are we putting our focus for our lives at the moment? Because if we are putting, it's like investing in stocks for your retirement plan. If you're putting everything on a given company and that company goes bankrupt, you have zero money. You're done. You're broken. Right? So are we putting our eggs in one single basket over here? Those baskets are all temporary. Even the family, right? The blood family is temporary. Next incarnation, role changes, things will change. That's why center our lives in God, right? In a doctrine that make us better and help us to understand our purpose. That is the core. It's innermost important, of innermost importance for us. Right? Are we all with me so far?
Yeah.
Good. And we all have those periods where we felt that void. And some of us may be feeling that right now. And that's why sometimes we spend some years without thinking about it, and it hurts so much to the point that we go back. And that's why we are here together. Because when we are together going through the same struggles, we help each other. Right? So there's so many items, too many things, right? And get to the point where, okay, let's do a little planning. Right? And we got to be realistic. I used to have, sharing my personal example here, excuse me for that, 10 things that I want to do on my inner transformation this year. And Teresa will talk about inner transformation next week, so I won't steal her thunder. But I used to have a list with 10 things and wouldn't get anything done. Next year, 10 things, nothing done. Next year, 10 things, nothing done. It's very hard, right? So I started to pick one thing, and I said, I'm going to work on this one thing until I'm done with it. And if it takes more than one incarnation, so be it. We got to adjust to reality. Right? Oh, but that person, it's so good. Well, that person is that person. And we have that tendency to compare ourselves with others and never work well, right? But lower expectations. So if you're doing your planning, a little tip for those who are not used to planning them, maybe pick the areas that are important for you. And maybe pick one thing. What is the one thing that if we change this year, it will be the best improvement, will create the best outcome for me and my family? Think about that. And you pick 4 of those things, right? And we have it there, and then create your system to track it. You have to track. The worst thing is you say, I will make a budget for my family January 1st. And then you forget it in the drawer on your notebook. In December, we say, oh my gosh, what happened with the year? We had a budget. Wow, you just create the budget. You never looked at it. You don't know if you were off or not of the budget, right? So find your system. Some people create a simple to-do list. Some people have an app on their cell phone to remind the tasks. Some people have a board. Whatever it is, create your system, right? And track it. And if you can engage your family with you, even better. But if your family is really afraid of planning, then you may want to do it yourself. And that's okay. And that's completely okay. Okay? And once you have that, That's easy. You're done. The lecture is pretty much done. Your life will transform and you'll be happily ever after. Isn't that great? Boom. I have my commitment for a diet this year, and I come back to the TSS. It is lunch and learn. Boom. There goes my diet. It is pasta. It's a good one. Give you some flexibility, okay? You eat today and you leave for next week. I create a budget. You know, honey, this year is gonna work. I have a budget plan, perfect. And then you got a call. Hey, your friends from Brazil, I'm planning to visit. Am I bringing my in-laws as well? We want you really to show us what Canada is all about. Oh my goodness. And then you have to be a great host and take them to Ottawa, Quebec City, right? CN Tower. Done. The budget is completely gone, right? Then things that we can control, right? Everything planned in your budget. Maybe we lost the job. What am I going to do now? I'm going to revisit everything. Life happens. These plans are not fixed in stone. We got to adjust them. And that's how it is. Maybe something is priority for me today. Next month, it will no longer be priority. Because we are changing. We change every day. Thank God we change every day. So our plans needs to adapt, right? Oh no, I'm going to read my books. I'm going to spend time with spirituality. I'm going to the TSS, and then a massive snowstorm. You know what? Not going to be able to make it tonight. Not going to be able to do it. So it happens. It happens. But you know, we really feel miserable when that happens, right? And that is really the problem. And our brains are amazing machines. They make connections. And we do have a mechanism that protected us for millions of years, which is really the system that it's an autonomous system pretty much. We don't think very much. We react, right? Some of the psychologists call it the lizard brain, right? When the caveman was there in the forest and there was a dinosaur who wants to eat, he wouldn't think about it. Oh, is that big? No, it's a flight or fight, right? And usually it's flight. So we were always looking for sources of pain. And the minimum risk of pain, we would just fly. And it's still today. So when we make our plans and we fail and we feel miserable, our brain just associate plan, failure, pain. So, honey, let's get together and do some planning. Whoosh! There's no one around. It's the brain saving us from pain. It's like public speaking, right? There's several surveys. What is the things that you are most afraid in life? More than death, believe me or not, is public speaking. Because we are afraid of being embarrassed. And our brain will say, you know what? Don't go there. Don't face that pain. Just fly. So we have a speaker's course starting next month. I hope you guys can fight that and don't fly. Hold still. But that's the reality. And, you know, that's what happened in my family, actually. We'll do some planning during the holiday season, and people run away from that planning conversation like those movies where the vampires run away from garlic. Or like Superman run away from kryptonite, right? That's what happened. That's what happened, unfortunately. We give up. And as Paul of Tarsus says, the good fight. We give up on that good fight. When we talk about inner transformation, it is painful because we look at things that we don't like it. And the first tendency is run away from it. Don't pick that fight. And sometimes we have to pick that fight, right? So we got to think about our mission. Isn't important that we pick the fight, that we do some more planning in spite of all the pain? It is important. We got to do it. I like this quote here from Michael Jordan, right? I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I've succeeded. It may sound strange, but we see failure as pain, frustration, etc. We have to program ourselves to start seeing pain as learning. And we need to pass that to our kids. We don't want to educate our kids and I'm speaking for myself, with that mindset of failure being that pain. We got to educate them that failure is how we learn, right? And if you think about Thomas Edison and the story of the light bulb, right? He failed hundreds and thousands of times. If he had given up, we wouldn't have that, or he wouldn't have invented it, someone else who would, right? But he failed and failed and failed. And when we fail, we learn that doesn't work. I got to try something else. Or we learn what not to do, right? So we need to change that. You know, Diclei, now you're starting to bring Michael Jordan to our Spiritist lectures, so the quality is not going good. Well, it's a real life example. So let's see what Chico Xavier and Emmanuel talk about us, right? So they remind us of this little passage in the Gospel where Jesus sent all the 12 disciples to preach, to cure, to help the Jewish community, actually, to wake them up, right? And he said, if anyone not welcome you in their homes, because they used to go and stay in the homes of people, right? There's no hotels, they didn't have money, so they would knock at the door, can we stay with you, can we work here? And Jesus said, if they don't receive you, they don't listen to you, leave that hometown or town and shake the dust off your feet. And I was looking at the study Bible that I have over there. What does that mean, right? And there's an explanation for us to understand. It's important. There was a custom or a habit when the Jewish people would visit a non-Jewish community, like the Gentiles, they were considered impure. As soon as they leave that city, town, or house, they would dust their feet, the sole of their feet, because they don't want the dust, the impurity, to contaminate the Israelite cities and houses. It's pretty tough, right? And then they say that Jesus told the disciples to protest if people don't receive them by doing that the same. So the Jewish would do that for Gentiles. Imagine the disciples doing that for the Jewish people. Major insult, right? But Emmanuel tells us that that is not the case. He is telling us that shake the dust off your feet. He was talking to them about failure. If things don't go well, right? If people don't receive you, if you cannot accomplish your mission in a given city, don't let the dust, that's the analogy, the dust of desperation, the dust of disappointment, the dust of frustration stop you from work. Dust yourself off and move on. So in our failures in life, that's all we need to do. Dust ourselves off and carry on. And we will, no worries, we will fail again. And we'll dust ourselves off and we fail again. Right? There's a question over there at the Gospel according to Spiritism. How do we recognize the true Christian, the true Spiritist, which is the same as the true Christian? Is it by the angelitude, by perfection? No. It's by the efforts that we make and make ourselves better. It's how we fail, we fall, and we stand up again and continue to move on. And that's it. We're all together. That's the way to go. Right? So we need to see failure in a different way. So if we are already giving up in our lives, in planning our lives, that is the one thing we would like everyone to take it from this conversation. Do not give up in yourself. Do not give up in your lives. Do not give up in your family. And if people don't come with you, walk by yourself. Thinking that we are alone, but we are never alone, right? We have our spiritual guide, so many people who are interceding for us in the spiritual realm, but do not give up. That's the way Jesus wants us to proceed. That's the way He wants us to see failure, right? And the challenge is that when we think about success, this is difficult for us because we want things for yesterday. We want things fast. And when we see people, let's speak on Michael Jordan again. Well, he's the greatest player ever, and I suck in basketball, so I will never be like him. So I would rather not even start, right? And I have my own tendencies on this, and the family there are tendencies on this. That I never played volleyball, so I'm never going to do it because I'm not good at it. Well, guess what? The volleyball champions of today, they didn't know even how to walk. Did you know that? When they were born, they didn't know how to walk. So it's not for granted, right? The greatest minds on earth, they have to go through school, they have to go through challenges. And we think that things are fast like that. We wake up in the morning, we're a different person. We think that to succeed with our plans is a straight line. Whoosh. We want to be like Jesus very quickly because I joined the TSS. Guess what? We are not going to leave Earth as a pure spirit this time, or maybe a couple of different planets in a couple of different existences ahead. Sorry to tell you. It's not going to happen. We are not going to be a Divaldo Franco in this existence, a Chico Xavier. It's not going to happen. But what matters is that we live here a little bit better. So what success really looks like is this. It is messy. Things get worse before they get better. Right? We make one right decision and make two other decisions wrong. And that's how it is. That's our nature, because we are no perfect beings. We are not Jesus. What we can do with a little bit of planning, with a little bit of self-control, with a support system, is something like this. Right? It depends on us. And this is really hard. I don't think I can make this, at least. But you make a small improvements, you reach a plateau where things don't improve for a while, and then a small increase. It's small, it's slow. It's part of the law of nature, right? If you plant a little bean, a little seed, it's not going to grow and give fruit for you the next day, the next hour, right? You gotta plant, and between the seeding and harvesting, you gotta water, you gotta care and protect, and you gotta wait. That's how things are. You gotta wait, right? And this is the tough things for us. So this is a emotional roller coaster of change, and often when we are planning something, we plan for a change, right? And the other day, someone had a great idea to create an app, a mobile app for the TSS, right? Oh, we'll create a mobile app. This is the best idea ever. Wow, it will be fun. This is harder than I thought. That was the first 30 minutes. Gee. And then this is going to be a lot of work. And this sucks, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And then we stop right here, right? There's what they call the dark swamp of despair. We got completely desperate. And if we're able to cope with that, we start to get out of it, right? Oh, but still sucks. We made some improvement, but still sucks. And then, quick, let's call it a day, and we learned something. So we think about giving up all along the journey, right? So that's the reality of everything we do, no matter which area you go. Your career, your job, a new boss, a new house, your inner transformation, whatever, we go through this process, right? The key message here is, what is the motivation to keep us on track, right? The beliefs in, I can't read this, persistence, right? There's a little bridge that can prevent you to go into that dark swamp of despair. It's a little bridge. The little bridge is, why I'm doing this? Because your brain is telling you, it is painful. Run away from here. Stop doing this. You don't need to do this. Right? It's especially for volunteers. Right? It's volunteer work. You have no obligation. You have a career. You have this and this. Just live this. If you don't think about the purpose, your belief system, there's no motivation for it, and we drop off the wagon. Right? So when we are planning, that's why we fail a lot, because sometimes we don't plan things that we care for. So if we are planning, ask yourself, why I'm planning this? Oh, because it's important. But why this is important for me? And ask a couple whys, like the children used to ask, and we forget about asking when we grow up, right? Or have a support system like your family, or a group like this, because a support system helps us, encourages us, right? So that's the reality, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one familiar with it. I hope not. But I'm pretty sure you know that. Now, There was a show on the TV the other day, right, where the Navy SEALs were training some guys and preparing them. It's very interesting. And they said there is a 40% rule, right? And the Navy SEALs proud themselves for having people prepared for all sorts of tough missions, right? Wherever it is, they will face it and they will move on. Like machines, like bulldozers. You just get the job done. But they are saying during the training, most people drop when they reach 40% of their potential. Before they do 40% of what they can do, they are giving up. It's the brain telling them it is too painful. 50 push-ups, forget about 10 push-ups. No, stop it. I can do more. And the people stop dropping. And then you may say, no, people that get into the Navy SEALs, this is because they are well-built. They are strong people. There's a lot of big guys that they can do what some of the skinny guys can. Or it's because the skills, some has no skills and they can do it. So why is that? It's in their minds, in their belief systems, in their purpose, in their motivation. Right? So there's a very nice book called Man Searching for Meaning. And it was about a gentleman who were in the Nazi camp. And he was one of the persons who survived. And all the time he had a purpose in his life. To survive, and that's what kept him alive. Very interesting book, Viktor Frankl. So we gotta find that purpose to help us to go through this, right? You know, Marcos, you're bringing Navy SEALs to the Spiritist lecture. Things are not going well here, so the speakers are all getting discouraged from my class. Okay, let's talk about Emmanuel again and Chico Xavier and the beautiful book called Thought and Life. And Emmanuel even said that he starts with thought because the thought process actually guide and define our lives. It starts with our thoughts. And the thought process is not the rational process only. It is a combination with our emotions. And the spirits can even see that. It's concrete. I have an image here with mental images, right? The spirits can see our mental images. Right? So, not impressive when he says that, and the reality of people giving up on their plans and their objectives before they reach halfway of the challenges, right? It's because in our minds. And, you know, for the sake of time, there are a few things that Emmanuel says here. One is what he called mirror of life. And he says that a lot of the challenge that we do have is actually a reflection of our inner troubles. We see the world in a way, but everything that we see is a reflection of us. Like if we see that negativity around, it's because we are naturally seeking for that negativity. And he says that we are immersed in an ocean of mental waves and mental images that will reach us no matter what. And there is an unavoidable law, which is the law of attunement. If I start to see that negativity around, it's because I am connecting with that negativity, because I do have that negativity. And I can't avoid that. It will come to me unless we vibrate in a different level, a positive level. Then those things will come through us, but we won't connect because we are above. Think about Jesus on the planet. Extreme case, right? But Jesus on the planet and all the negativity around here. He was above all. That's why improving our spirituality, our inner transformation, help us to be above of that. And the contrary is also true. If we are positive, if we are at that level, we will see things from a positive perspective. And the little things that we do to each other won't matter that much. A little gossip, right? Someone who betrays us here, someone who lies, it will not affect us as much as it do. Our little failures won't affect us as much as they do, right? So it's unavoidable. We are among this ocean of thoughts, and this can carry us, right? Let the life carry us. These thoughts can carry us to places that we don't want to go. So that is a dangerous zone. The second, the three items on is willpower. How can we control that? If they will reach and affect us, Emmanuel says that Our minds are like a major company with several departments. Departments of desire, departments of memory, right? Departments of creativity for creation. But there is the cabinet, the central cabinet of the will. And I made this as a willpower to make it easier for us. The will is what can actually determine what we do with the energy hitting us. Because even if we have negativity reaching us, and even if we have negativity in us, we do have a choice on how to respond to that negativity. That's the good battle. That's the inner battle that Paul of Tarsus talks so much, right? So we are not at the mercy. We don't want to use the excuse of being in a planet like this, surrounded by negativity, for not being able to be better. Because the power is within our reach. It's internal. It's the willpower. It's the motivation that we just discussed here. Why I'm doing what I'm doing? Because it is important. Because I know the meaning, the purpose, and my mission, right? It's important that we spend some time to think about it. And last but not least, associated with that, we have our habits, right? Things that we do automatically. There are habits that we have been doing for innumerable incarnations. And we still bring them. And the challenge that we have in life, or the blessings that we have in life, are thanks to our habits. So we have to learn about ourselves and address those habits, right? And we have a lecture about the central theme. We all have one or a few major topics. There are the centers of our concerns, and everything gravitates around. And if we don't know that central theme, that makes it very hard for us to really make changes. That's why it's so important for us to know about ourselves, right? So, when we feel miserable, next time we fail, whenever that happens, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, let's really ask ourselves, why I'm feeling that miserable? Oh, because it hurts. Right? Well, why it hurts? And try to get at the bottom of it. And very often we will get to our central theme. That very often is, as the gospel says, associated with pride and selfishness. Very often. Things that are minimum, like making a mistake in a lecture, it may be the end of the world because we are too pride. Because we feel we are so good that we cannot make mistakes. It's unacceptable. Danny can make a mistake, not me. Because I'm so good that I don't make mistakes. That's a sign that the pride cannot fit this room. That's our central theme. That's what we need to focus on. So we should get used to do what we do as a kid. Ask why more often, right? Leaving a few tips here for us as we conclude. And find your own way, right? Believe in yourself. Let's give ourselves another chance. And if we need another chance, give another chance. Because that's what God does. If God does that to us, why we wouldn't give ourselves another chance? Because we will fail. So we need lots of chances. Don't give yourself only one, right? But try again. Evaluate why we failed. Try something different. Experiment. And we should not compare ourselves with others. Because we are one individual. My wife is another individual. My kids are different. My neighbor, the volunteers at the TSS, everyone is different. Everyone has his or her own way. So if you talk about planning for the year, find your way. Maybe my way doesn't work for you, your way doesn't work for me. Everyone is a different individual. We can share with each other our challenges, what works, what doesn't work, but we gotta try, right? We gotta try. And let's remember that He is the way. So if our way of doing things and resolving things are very far from the way that Jesus points to us, we may want to reconsider that. Because He walked quite a few steps ahead of us. And we need a little bit of humility to recognize that He knows more. And we got to follow him, right? So I hope that this conversation can encourage you to reignite the desire to change, to improve, the hopes that we can improve and change. There are some tips on how we can get started. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it later on. But give yourself a chance, and whatever you're planning for the year, reserve a seat for God, for spirituality, for self-knowledge in your plans. Don't let that aside. And sometimes we gotta recognize that no matter how we plan, things don't go as we wanted. And that's the time that we need to be humble and say, God, I did all I could. Now is in your hands. Because we cannot control everything. That's the reality. And maybe that's one of the hardest points for us, because we think we can control everything, and we have a hard time to control our thoughts, right? So sometimes we just need to let God take us, right? And I wish you a blessed new year, and I hope we can all stick together to finish the year better than we started. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcos. And I have to say, by the number of people here today, a lot of people started with the right priorities. Congratulations.
Yes.
Great to see the full house. We have a few minutes. We have this delicious lunch that was prepared by Raquel. And if you made a New Year resolution to lose some weight, you're going to have to put that aside a little bit today. But it's worth it. Any comments or questions?
Sometimes we try, as you were saying, sometimes we want our lives balanced in a straight line, but life is like our heartbeat.
Yep.
It's ups and downs. And if you are just balanced, you are dead.
You're dead.
So you cannot be like that. You have to understand the ups and downs in life and try to cope with it.
And I think that I'm an optimist. I think our life gets balanced every day, but for such a short microsecond that we don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that in transition from up and down. At one point, like even a clock that's broken is right twice a day. We're balanced a few times a day. We just don't see it. So part of kind of toning ourselves down and putting aside the extremes, we'll be able to see that there are moments, more than we believe, where we're actually in a good spot, in a good place. It's just that it doesn't last very long. But we can make it seem longer, and we can make it be longer. Yes.
Yeah. Livia, any comments there on the internet? Questions? Thank you.
Just a question. When you mentioned about inner transformation, would you share maybe one personally or something that comes to your mind on how to track? Because when you talk about the budget, it's really clear, but if you have one central thing that you say, okay, I want to work on that, how would you, I don't know, share experience or advice on a good way to track something?
I can share one thing with you, and Teresa, next week, she will talk a lot about inner transformation, so maybe you share some over there. What I'm going to share is nothing new. It's on the Spirit's book, question 919b from St. Augustine, which is writing. When I have some struggles in life, and it's really hard for me to swallow, to cope with it, and I feel there is a lot of dust covering me, I just write it down. And by writing down what happened without identifying anyone, right? I keep it anonymous because maybe my kids, my wife will read it, and I want them to read because there's some knowledge there. But I just write it down, what happened, why did I feel, and then I start to ask, why is that? Why is that? Until I get to the point where I'm back to this, and I'm making progress or I'm not making progress. Or today I have this challenge, I felt that, but it lasted so short. So how you're feeling, how long or short those struggles feel, it is an indication for us. It's a way to track if you're making progress or not, right? This is one way. There's multiple different ways that I track it.
You can just it's part of the planning, I would say. So if you're planning to correct or you want to fix this, so it's also part of the planning to try to find a way in which you feel better. Because it may be different. For example, if you're trying to fix a certain point in your life, and for me, this would be success, and for you, maybe something else. So you should try to find different goals, and then, my first step would be this, and then the second one would be that, and the third one. So after a while, we can balance and see if you reached your own goals,
Mm-hmm. Sandra?
I don't know if it makes sense to you. It makes sense in my head.
We actually studied this Thursday. That's why I was exchanging insights with Anna and Carlos on our Thursday group. And one thing that we are also studying at the same time, the Genesis, and by coincidence, if you believe in coincidence, we studied the same thing on both books. And one thing that St. Augustine did for me as a psychologist, what he's trying to tell me is be conscious. When you write, you are conscious. So if you are conscious of everything and that you did this day, you'll be able to recognize things that needs improvement. So be conscious. Sometimes we don't want to be conscious because we don't want to see what is just in front of us, because there's too much work if I see that and I don't want to deal with that. It's easier just to go back to old habits, but the old habits going to keep me where I am, which is sometimes pain and not moving forward and not changing and not transforming, which is something that Teresa is going to be talking to us next week. So being conscious is very, very hard. So if we do get to this point of being conscious of our acts, of our feelings, of our thoughts, and even being conscious of what we are not feeling, not seeing, and not thinking, it's the whole aspect of really touching that inner transformation, or not.
Thanks,
Just
Sandra.
remember that this tracking, like how to track, is never going to be a straight. It's not never because, like you said, financially it's easy. It's straightforward, exact numbers. I know I started where I finished. You never be anything exact that you want to have a system that I'm going to be able to track and see my transformations. Sometimes the transformations are so subtle that it takes you sometimes a while to get that conscious that Sandra's talking about and realize, wow, I did change. I know someone who, after years, he looks back and say, wow, I changed so much, because he said before I would be in the office and the cleaner would come around. I wouldn't even notice it in there. Like, I couldn't care less. To me, they're like inexistent. You're not at my level. And then this guy got into Spiritist and started to be conscious of, how to really treat people around him. And now he's the guy who says good morning to the. He said, I would really treat them like they're not even people to me. Like, I don't care. And that changed it. So sometimes, but it's not like he started Spiritism the next day he changed it. Sometimes for you to track will take you a while, because the change ourselves, we don't change from like split second. So they are subtle, but they keep adding up. If you create that conscious that Sandra is telling you about, they add up, and then eventually you say, wow, when I look back few years, then I see the big change. So there's no exact tracking system that's going to show you that. It's more subtle things.
Okay, great start. I want to thank everyone again for participating, listening, thinking. We're going to bring in the children. We're going to have our pass now. And then I have a number of announcements. So even if you're not staying for the lunch and learn, for the lunch, please just wait a few minutes. I just want to talk about some exciting things. We're going to talk about the blood donation drive that's happening next month. All of other stuff. I'd like to thank everybody who is either watching us live now or will be watching us later through Facebook Live. Thank you for sharing your time with us.